We are live. Let's wait for Instagram to kick in. I'm 2 minutes late this morning. There we go. Instagram is on it. That works. Welcome, everybody. See if we can get through this on a Monday morning. And I'm slept in. I wasn't prepared. I had a big weekend, but I hope all of you guys are doing great and you had a good, restful weekend. Welcome to Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. Wasn't it fun having Jeff Hiscock drop in last Friday? If you saw that show, we're going to have more guests on the show. I enjoyed that. That was that had a good energy and it was fun. Thanks again for that, Jeff. I talk about Brian Romelli sometimes on this show when we kick off on our early segments to give people a chance to join us. And I saw a post on X from him this morning that was a eighth grade. It was a picture of an eighth grade test, an examination from, I think it was from somewhere in a county in Ohio, but from November 1912. So from 1912, eighth grade. And the question itself, the test itself had all subjects. So it was spelling, reading, arithmetic, grammar, geography, physiology, civics, and history. And there was like 8-10 questions per section. And here's just a random sampling, just questions that I extracted from this test from 1912. See how you would do on this. Find cost at 12.5 cents per square yard of Kalos mining. That was pre-painting the walls of a room 20 feet long, 16 feet wide, 9 feet high, deducting one door 8 feet by 4 feet 6 inches and two windows at 5 foot by 3 foot 6 inches each. Grade 8. Grade 8. Calculate the cost of that. Find the amount of $50 at 3% per annum for 1 year, 3 months, and 3 days. A little finance question for you. This is pre-spreadsheets. This is 1912. Adjectives have how many degrees of comparison? Compare good, wise, beautiful. I don't know what that is, by the way. I don't think I learned grammar in school. Locate the following countries which border each other: Turkey, Greece, Serbia, Montenegro, Romania. Through what waters would a vessel pass in going from England through the Suez Canal to Manila? Again, eighth grade test from 1912. How's your kid going to do? Define cerebrum and cerebellum. Name 3 rights given Congress by the Constitution and 2 rights denied Congress. Describe the Battle of Quebec. I'm Canadian. I'm not sure what the Battle of Quebec was. Give the cause of the War of 1812 and name an important battle fought during that war. I'm almost certain the Americans will have a different answer for that than us Canadians would have an answer for that. I did hear a funny story recently that when Trump first got into power, he called, or Trudeau, or vice versa, and there was a negotiation, and Trump accused Trudeau of burning down the White House in 1812. And Trudeau, instead of laughing and having some fun with that, as he should have done, threw up his hands and blamed the French. Anyways, questions from 1912, a grade 8 test. I was really fascinated by that. I have a young daughter, so she's going into grade 6 this year. And so it really just hammers home the point that everything that's wrong in Western culture stems exactly from education or lack thereof. I don't know. New announcement for you, a new business course for entrepreneurs and medium and small businesses. This program will help you earn more profit, raise more business capital. This is a course that I've created, by the way. And so if you want to learn how to raise capital for your business, medium and small businesses, companies that maybe you're having difficulty, don't really fit in the box for new money. If you want to raise more business capital and you want to earn more profit, this is the course for you. It's the Winning Momentum program. It's in 8 modules. In other words, it's 8 separate videos. Each video is like 45 minutes to an hour. The topics covered include things such as the use of KPIs, key performance indicators, to simply monitor your business and trigger a need for change. If you want to change your results, you have to change your actions. When do you change your actions? What do you change them to? This is what KPIs can help you understand. The use of A/B testing applied to operational systems, the role of confirmation bias in leadership, how it's limiting your performance and what you can do about it, the design and use of cash flow projections. I did a coaching session recently, and part of that is we provide a cash flow projection model, a template for that person to use. And I know that Doug, you have some questions into me on email on that, so I'll be answering those probably the next day here when I can get to it. The math of profitability and what you should be doing first, second, and third in your business, small and medium-sized business, to be earning more profit. Why it's critical to empower your team for continuous improvement, and that helps to create wealth for yourself. So you avoid this situation where you've created a business that's actually, paying you, and you're doing okay off that, but you're unable to sell it at the end of your career and to generate intergenerational wealth. We'll cover the business of marketing strategy, how to finance a business, and there's even a module on an introduction to persuasion, because if you're going to change and raise some money and earn more profit, you need to persuade internal and external stakeholders to come along for that ride. And all of this content, as I said, is presented in 8 modules. You can purchase them separately, or you can purchase them at a package, obviously for a discounted price. First, and we're doing pre-sales right now, so the first video will be available in September, so next month, and we will have a video a month thereafter. That's kind of the release schedule for this thing, and you can buy them right now as a bundle at a 50% discount, which makes it pretty cheap. And if you are hearing this announcement on my live stream, here's a secret. Here's just for you and me, okay? If you use the code EXTRA25, extra 25, all caps, EXTRA25, one word, you will get another 25% off. And now you may be asking, where can I find this show? Which is really, this purchase of this course. That's really a great question. And you would think if I'd been more organized, I would have had that ready for you. But apparently, here we go. Go to The Scott Sinclair. Check it out on the website, TheScottSinclair, thescottsinclair.com. And it's on there. And if you want to go directly to the store, you can go to thescottsinclair.myshopify.com. So that's where you can find these courses. And it's going, as I said, on a pretty significant pre-sale right now to get some interest in this. And then after this, the prices will only be going up. Well, what else do we have today on a sleepy Monday, mid-August morning? How about what's going on with residential real estate? We all know commercial real estate's been in trouble, but what about residential? I've been receiving calls from bankruptcy trustees and various jurisdictions. I don't want to make it too specific on this live stream, talking about syndications that they've been involved with, and just the over leverage and the unsophistication of some of the people that have invested in syndicated real estate deals on houses, on flips, on anything sort of going like that, and they're all falling apart, and it's a real disaster. People are losing their money. Quadras Wines, how you doing? Hey, do you enjoy wine? Do you guys enjoy wine? Quadras Wines is associated with Opus Bistro in Toronto, which is still, after all these years, the best kitchen in the city, in my opinion. And they have, I don't know what the ownership situation is, but they have some ownership of Quadras wines in Portugal, and their wines are fantastic. Probably the best value for money in the sense that they're reasonably priced, but extraordinarily high quality wines. I love drinking those wines, and I love visiting Opus. So there's a little shout out for you. When we have our private Sinclair range dinners at Opus, we often have the proprietor there speak to the Quadras wines, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So where was I? Oh yeah, residential real estate's going to shit. So Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal on the weekend or this morning, no, I think it was on the weekend, says today's housing market is the most difficult in decades. Get frustration, which is a great frustration for millennials and Gen Zers looking for a starter home. So the most difficult, expensive, in other words, market in decades, and millennials and Gen Zers aren't able to buy a home. There's a home buying affordability index, and in June 2024, it dropped to its lowest level since 1985, which I might remind you followed Jimmy Carter's inflation. He was president until 1981, and his inflation ramped up to 10.3%. But more importantly, the combat to that from the Fed was to raise interest rates above 18%. I remember as a kid, my parents going through that. The National Association of Realtors affordability metric incorporates medium single family existing home prices, mortgage rates, so on. And it's roughly the same right now as it was in the early to mid 1980s. And that's just elbowing out younger people from the market. And so I think a lot of Gen Zers in particular feel like they're going to be renting for the rest of their lives and never building equity in their homes like us older generations did as part of our retirement plan. So in the mid 1980s, the home prices themselves were not terribly high, but as I said, mortgage rates were above 18% in 1981 and held over 10% for most of a decade. And today, that's not true. Mortgage rates are higher, but they're 6.5% as of this article in the US, according to the Wall Street Journal. I know it differs a little bit where you are, but it's more than double than it was in 2021, yet still below the long-term average since 1971, which I might add would include that 18% and the high decade of the 80s. So it used to be in the 80s, the problem for young people buying a home was interest rates was ridiculous. And today it's not that, it's the cost. In January 2021, a family needed income of $49,152, a median income to buy a home with a 20% discount. So 2021 in the US, you needed roughly 50 grand to put a income to put down a 20% on an average home. And that's what it was. And then only 3 years later, during the Biden administration in 24, the family would need an income of more than double that. You need a family income now of 110,000 to make that exact same purchase. So more than double the income needed to buy that home. And that's what's squeezing out younger people and even just lower mid-income, lower income families from buying homes. It's a disaster. It's the cost front. The mortgages have gone up as well, but it's the all-in costs. Similarly, in Canada, the Globe and Mail reports. Globe and Mail, as I remind you viewers often, is the sort of Wall Street Journal of Canada. That residential property developers are facing rising insolvencies as they struggle with higher borrowing and construction costs. The industry experts warn the trend is likely to worsen as interest rates remain elevated. So the number of insolvencies in real estate companies has climbed rapidly. January to May 24, there was an average of 20 real estate rental or leasing insolvencies in Canada every month. Puts it on pace for 240 this year, which would be 57% higher than 2023, which in turn was 13% higher than 2009. In other words, it's exploded. And by the way, that doesn't mean that the real estate company got into trouble in 2024. What it means is they got into trouble at some point, maybe 3 years ago, and they They negotiated with their bank. We had Jeffrey Hiscock on last week talking about lend and amend, or amend. Yeah, lend and amend. So, the borrower can't pay back and the bank doesn't want to take the hit on this. And so they keep extending, and until everybody gets frustrated and you hit a wall, and then you go into the insolvency. So this is the coming home to roost of problems probably for the last 2-3 years. I have been hearing about residential real estate in Canada, multi-unit projects in particular, that have been seeking protection now, or would need to, for probably 2 years. This has been a thing. So Canada's on track, as I said, for its highest year in a long time. And by the way, that's as reported by the Superintendent of Bankruptcy, which does not include receiverships. That's just restructurings. And the receiverships, here we are. What does this say? That so far this year, the real estate accounts for 55% of every receivership in Canada. And that's according to Insolvency Insider Canada, which is, if you're interested in that space, you should check out that website. It is run by Henry, who's a good guy, and really has everything to do with Canadian insolvency that you can possibly imagine. You can subscribe to a multiple time a week newsletter through Insolvency Insider. So some of the current problems in residential development can be traced back to 2017, according to the Globe and Mail, when home prices quickly exploded, particularly in Toronto. Don't forget that a huge percentage of the Canadian population all live in the same city, which is Toronto and the Greater Toronto area. And even new immigration that comes to Canada, they go out to smaller cities out in the prairies or what have you, and they're forced to live there a year because it's easier to get in. But after a year, they're free to go, and they all move to Toronto or one of the larger cities. And so a lot of the explosion in growth, and therefore costs and demand for real estate, ends up in Toronto, and to some of the other larger cities to a lesser extent, but certainly Toronto. So the cost of construction rose 10%, right from 2017 to 2018. The cost was up 10%. Oh, sorry, from 21 to 2018, it was up 2018 21, it was up 10%. From 17 to 18, it was up 10%. So you see this climbing, and now you're up over 107% in costs, according to Globe and Mail, in Toronto. So from 17 to 24, the cost of construction has gone up over 107%. So this is very similar to the US experience, according to the Wall Street Journal, where we saw that your median income had to go from 50 grand to 110 grand to buy the same house over a very short period of time. And what's driven that has been inflation. It has been mortgage and insurance costs, for sure. Not the construction costs, but the home buying experience. But on the construction cost side, you've got inflation on building materials. You've had the developer during COVID, they had to carry these projects longer. It was harder and slower to complete them. And so your financing costs certainly built up, and regulation. Regulation has been a huge issue that has slowed down everything to do with development, and caused this problem so that younger people are unable to buy their first homes. And so in summary, costs are higher, mortgage rates are higher. It doesn't talk about this much, but insurance is out of control, higher. And if you're a younger Gen Z or millennial, you're just feeling like you're squeezed out of the market. But what nobody talks about, the Wall Street Journal, the Globe and Mail, is, really, to me, this just comes down, as always, to supply and demand. In the US, during the Biden administration, there was about 20 million immigrants. This is not a political statement. I don't care one way or the other. You can grow as large as you want to grow in any country. But the fact of the matter is was roughly 8 million authorized immigrants into the US during the Biden administration, and somewhere between 10, maybe even 20 million of unauthorized, let's put it, illegal immigrants into the US on top of that. So let's just take the conservative number. Let's say 20 million new people in total. and you had 5.5 million new housing starts during that same period, which is actually not bad, but it's not enough, clearly. And so you've got more demand. These people have to live somewhere, yet you don't have enough houses being built. And why don't you have enough houses being built? Regulation. It's hard to get permits. It's hard to get construction done in the United States, particularly in the blue states. And similarly in Canada, we've had about 3 million new residents. Again, you can't get real stats. It may be a lot more than that. But over the same period of time, you've had about 3 million new residents, illegal or otherwise, or legal. And you've had about 975,000 housing starts during that period, which is not good, And that is significantly tied to regulation at the provincial and municipal level. It's just hard to get permits. It's hard to get permits, and it's hard to get everything organized. And these days, it's hard to get the financing done as well. So you've had this massive increase in demand, and you've had a massive increase in regulation slowing down the supply. To me, that's the dynamic that I would urge you, the younger generation, to think about. And what does that mean? What does that mean for you? Well, I'm going to talk from a Canadian perspective, and I warn you, I do not give financial advice to you at a personal level. I'm not licensed to do that. I'm not qualified to do that. But I would say this. I've been around Canada a long time, and the US for some part of that, but of my life, but around Canada, and pay attention to Canada really for many decades. And rarely, like, I don't think I've seen a strong real estate correction probably since the early 1980s to mid 1980s, somewhere in that range. When everything else has crashed, you think back to the tech bubble, you think back to significant recessions, 2018 with the bursting of the financial system around the world, and all the recessions along the way. Real estate in Canada just hasn't. I mean, it may have slowed down, but you never really lost in its investment. And so the fact of the matter is, you're going to have strong demand, and you're always going to have strong demand, because there's no way that this immigration is going to slow down. There's just no way. There's no political will to hugely slow down immigration. It maybe slow down a little bit, but just like inflation, just because it's reversing and slowing down doesn't mean it's not going up. With inflation, if you have 3% instead of 10%, well, prices are still increasing. That doesn't mean prices are going down. Prices are never going down. Same with your housing. Your housing's really not going to go down. I recall in sort of the mid 80s, I was too young, but with my parents, and my dad was in the real estate business at the time, that the lower end homes, the medium homes for an average family, for a Gen Z or a millennial today, they didn't drop at all. They just didn't go down even during that real estate crash. It was the $1 million homes, which is the 10, $20 million homes today. They were cut down. They went down in half. But then a couple of years they rebounded, right? And that was the last time I can recall a correction in Canada. So you're going to have the demand coming, and you're going to have the regulation is not going to get reversed, because again, there's no political will for that. So until you have some major, and it's the same in the US, until you have some major change in administration, in government, with a will to tackle this problem, not just press releases like Justin Trudeau in Canada puts out on Twitter like every week or so, that we're building 3 more houses in Surrey or wherever. It's not helping. It's not helping. There needs to be a significant overhaul of regulation and a hard matching of supply and demand before this market normalizes. And so if you're trying to buy a home, that sucks. But on the other hand, if you're looking at it as an investment, it's probably not going to go down. Not financial advice from me, but it's not going to go down. I think the opportunity is still there. If you can figure out a way to buy your first home, it's going to set you up for your rest of your life. That's my view. That's my view on this thing. I think those are all my prepared remarks on this midsummer August day. Let's all have a great week. I have to get to work. And I'm sure that you do as well. We'll see you tomorrow, Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. Mountain Time, 10:30 Eastern, and we'll be live. We'll be live every day, and we'll bring in some more guests.